So rough start to the new year, down 0.25%. We touched the low here from the Friday the 20th session. That low was 180.91, and you can see the low for today was 180.50. Touched that low, and then we ended up closing kind of mid-candle. So let's take a look at the charts and see if we are going to get a little bit of a bounce from a potential double bottom, or is this on its way to a new lower low? Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So looking at fear and greed, 26 on the day, down from a 27, still in fear, just barely one more step, and we're probably into extreme fear. All the major indicators are in extreme fear though, momentum, strength, and breadth. Continuing to see strength go lower seemingly every day. We haven't seen it this low in more than a year. We've been talking about that for a while. Breadth continues to kind of find some higher lows in here on the 200 day, interesting there. Put call ratio, elevating, makes sense, in fear there as well. Volatility continuing to go higher. We'll take a look at that later. Safe haven demand down into extreme fear now, and junk bonds still kind of hovering in neutral. Seasonally, relatively choppy here in the first part of January, supposed to accelerate to the upside second half of January. A lot of people talking about the Santa Claus rally, not really happening, getting more of a Grinch, which is a little bit bearish of an indicator for the rest of the year. So it'll be interesting to see if this continues into this kind of bullish scenario post-election year, or if it's going to be kind of flat or potentially bearish for the month. And what does that mean for the rest of the year? Typically, that means it's going to be a little bit bearish if we get this flatter scenario. And then looking at the calendar briefly, you can see first trading day typically up on average, second day of the year up 21 of the last 31, and then you can see end of the Santa Claus rally. So there's a little bit of time left. I don't really think it's going to happen that way, and still no bulls here until we get to Tuesday next week. Looking at the economic calendar, continuing jobless claims a little better than expected. You like to see that. Previous number revised down slightly. Want to continue to see that if the economy is going to stay strong. Manufacturing PMI better than expectations, but below the 50 line. Construction spending not great there. Atlanta Fed GDP worse than expectation, 2.6, quite a bit worse actually than the 3.1, and then Fed balance sheet continuing to sell off down into the 6.8 trillions. And then looking at the Friday, just a little bit more economic data. Shouldn't move markets a whole lot. Want to see that Atlanta Fed GDP number. 2.6 is a little bit lower than the 3.1 we had previously. It'll be interesting to see if that holds here for fourth quarter. Moving over to max pain, this is one of the lowest put call ratios I've seen on here in a while at 0.8. Total options 500,000, not a lot, but look at these massive call walls at 600 and 595. Puts down here at 590. Current stock price 584. The puts really don't start here until 585, so we're basically at the bottom of the calls already, so that gives you a little bit of a bottom for markets, at least in the short term for this week. We'll see if that continues to hold up, but we're starting to get those more bearish finishes at the bottom of the calls. Moving over to the SPY charts here, down 0.25%, like I said, closed below the 585.91 level. We've been doing that a couple of times here. You can see we did it mid-December. We held it on the Tuesday. We held it on the Monday as well, but now we've closed below it. We touched the low like I talked about, and then the next level here is going to be 579.78. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. In terms of RSI levels here, you can see the RSI low was about a 37.6, 37.5 here, and current RSI is a 40.43. We touched that low. We're at the same price levels here with a slightly higher RSI. So for me, that says we should get a little bit of a bottom, maybe come up here, retest these EMAs in here. You still have the trend, you still have the level 585.91 as some zones of resistance, but for now, with the big wick rejection, with the support levels holding over the last 3 days, and you can see back here as well, support from that mid-November area. I still think this might hold up here at least for a couple of days, maybe test a slightly lower high in here and then continue lower. I still think the continue lower part is going to happen. Still looking for this gap fill back here to 5 November, right in that 574.71 area. So whether we get the up move, probably not a lot, 1.5%, maybe 2% at the most, and then expecting about a 1.5% to 2% move lower to fill that gap, and then we'll see what happens after that. And then looking at that short time frame here, you can see didn't quite touch the level there at that 579 level. Did catch a bounce mid-session, did hit VWAP, did hit the 21 EMA as resistance, sold a little bit into the after hours, so nothing crazy, no change on the structure. You got this double bottom we were watching, took those levels out, broke down, retested those levels here in the after hours at the end of the session. And now we're going to see, does this immediately sell off back down to this level here, or does it get back above the level and potentially retest some of these zones in here like I talked about? So critical short-term level is that 585.91 And then looking at the Tasty charts here, you can see we got to that lowest ATR band, just barely missing it here, but very, very close. Touched that level, caught a bounce. 8 EMA on the hourly is still your resistance, 584.91. Touched that level at the end of the session, held that as resistance. So that says this should continue to sell off into tomorrow's session based on this price action here. We were in bullish conditions just barely for a few hours in here early in the session with that pop in the pre-market, and then you can see big selling here. Obviously back into bearish conditions and continued lower through the session. Short-term target would be that lowest ATR band once again, which would be that 579.66 level, right at that band in here. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, a little bit better actually, 0.2 to the downside, held the level 509.74. Big wick down to the trend line, so this trend structure is starting to look more and more plausible, which is not great, right? So you have a high, lower high, touched this bottom, established it between these two zones here. Lower high, came right back to that trend line, touched it here, and then caught a little bit of a bounce. So at this point, it seems like this kind of downtrending structure for the short term is going to be a play. If that becomes a medium term thing, that's going to suck because this is probably going to downtrend quite a bit more. We're still very, very extended off of these medium to long term EMAs. 144 sitting all the way down there at 487. If we did get a retracement to normalization, that would be about 4.5% lower. And beyond that, you would be looking for a move down to the 200, that's about 7% lower. The level is about 7.5% lower. So momentum bearish, RSI is bearish. So at least for now, looks like this short-term structure is holding, waiting to see if it becomes a more medium-term downtrend. And then, like I said, levels 509.74. Touched those wicks, touched the 55 EMA, ended up holding. It's bouncing just a little bit after hours. And you can see that here, big rally mid-session, climbed into the close, held that after hours, did dip down, did touch that level 509 again, and now we're bouncing again into the after hours. So pretty good position there. We'll see if that plays out. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish on the short time frames. Still got the 144 and the 200 up there as resistance. But if it can hold this kind of gaining price action, 514.92 would be the next level. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see hit that lowest ATR band. Looks very, very similar here to the SPY charts. You can see I took a position in here. So I sold out up here somewhere maybe in the 510, 509 area in here, and then bought back in on this move higher here, and then caught this rally into the end of the session. I actually traded pretty well on the day, managed to stay positive on the day, which is good. We'll look at that later, obviously, but you can see after hours, we are above that 8 EMA at 510.58. If that can hold, maybe we can see a push back into here, 514.50, into that 55 EMA on the hourly. That's right in there, like I said, 514.82. That's the zone where we found resistance in the pre-market and end up selling from there. So we'll see how it plays. Right now, it does look a little bit bullish to me coming off of this low, rallying pretty aggressively, breaking out here above that 8 EMA. Moving over to the Russell managed to stay positive once again, 0.08% to the upside, 18 cents. Threw some wicks in both directions, took out the high and the low from the Tuesday, but couldn't really hold any of those gains and still closed below my 221.49 level. Not great, but continues to hold in here, which is fine. I'll continue to hold the options and continue to hold the shares there. Either way, this looks like a base to me. Want to see it go higher into that 229 area. And then looking at the Dow, pretty bad there actually, the worst of the group at 0.4%. Momentum back to bearish, RSI back to bearish as it continues to trend lower here. Volume ramping on that selling. Again, touched the low here from the Friday the 20th candle. Caught a little bit of a bounce from there. It's up just a smidgen after hours, but not super great. We'll see if this ends up being a double bottom or not. Current support is 418.38. Current resistance 426.20. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 continues to look bad, down nearly 0.7, 0.69 on the day. Took out this previous low here, closed below it, closed below the previous candle. It's finding a little bit of a bounce after hours, nothing crazy. Expecting this to touch at least the wicks from this previous zone here. And I went ahead and added those levels. 305.25 is that kind of high of those wicks consolidation in here, mid-November, and then I added the level from the low of the 20th. That's 315.04. So we're below that level. Looking for a touch of 305. If it holds this zone, that would be good, but I expect that we'll at least touch that 55 EMA down at 302.38. Right now, Mag 7 continues to downtrend. That is 5 negative trading days in a row. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft here, you can see Apple did finally crater through that 21 down to these trends, down to my level. That level is 241.83. The low of day was 241.82, so we touched it by 1 penny. Touched that level, caught a little bit of a bounce, held these trends in here. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, big volume. So this is kind of round tripped some of this move now. We're back into the same zone from the beginning of December. It's given all of that back. Pretty impressive. It was a strong run, new all-time highs, obviously, and now we're retracing a lot of that move. So right now, 241.83. If that holds, you're in good shape. If it closes below that, your next level is 237.23, with the 55 EMA being there at 237.40. So momentum bearish, RSI bearish, Apple not looking super great. Microsoft down as well, 0.69, pretty much in line with the Mag 7. Interesting. Caught a little bit of a bounce after touching the highly traded zone here around that 414.90 area. Didn't quite touch my level at 413.36. I still think that it probably will touch that level before we kind of culminate here. Momentum and RSI are both still bearish, not quite oversold yet. Obviously, we've retraced all of this move back here to the end of November. It was a strong run, about 7%. We've since retraced all of that, about 8% down. So we'll see. Like I said, 413.36. If that holds, it's okay. If it doesn't, looking for a bigger move down to that 394 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla cratered on bad delivery numbers, 6% there. Technically, it looked really terrible anyway, so we've been talking about it, quite bearish here. 4 days of bearishness in a row. Broke the level, expected it to push to 384.29. Talked about it in the previous video. Ended up gapping down and falling through that level. Next level for me, 369.23. We've round tripped almost all of this move now since the breakout back here in that 355 area. Not quite yet, but it seems like we're probably going to. Obviously, everything's bearish. 55 EMA sitting down there at 337.65. And then looking at NVIDIA, actually looks a little bit better here today. We had a huge down day on the Tuesday. Big bear candle, 2.3%. But we actually retraced all of that and closed above the body of that candle. So we'll see if this structure ends up playing out. It does look very similar to the overall NASDAQ structure with this kind of slow downtrending price action. Key resistance here, that is a third touch of that trend line and sold off. Waiting to see if we get another move down to this zone here in the 123 area, 124, my level 124.69. Momentum's back to bullish. RSI bouncing off the SMA here after downtrending. Like to see that bounce. If this breaks the trend line here and can get above that 140.76 area, I'll probably take a long in here to try to get back to those highs. That'd be about a nice 7% move. And I do think that's a pretty good opportunity in here for NVIDIA. So looking to see this trend line break, held the higher low here. If we can get the candle break, like I said, 7 to 8% potential. Moving over to Amazon and Google, these held up a little better, 0.38 and 0.1 to the upside actually. You can see holding that kind of double bottom structure in here. Did close still below the trend from the previous. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish there on Amazon. Kind of mixed signals. You could call this kind of neutral structure, maybe neutral to bearish, but not super great. I would probably be out here if I was long off of this move. Realistically, you wanted to take the profits here at the lower high once you saw this bear candle on the 26th, but either way, if you're trying to play this as a double bottom, be patient. Definitely have a very tight stop here because if it breaks down, you're looking at about 3% to that next trend, 3.8% to the next support for me. So also you have the gap fill back here to the 3 December. That close price was 213.44, so something else to watch there. There's also gaps back here as well, all the way back to 25 November. So just something to keep in mind there. And then looking at Google, like I said, slightly positive, still holding VWAP 21 EMA. Momentum and RSI are still bearish. If this 21 continues to hold, you're in good shape. Right now, we didn't even test the low back here from the Friday session. So structurally and on a relative strength basis, Alphabet continues to look a little better. Moving over to Meta and Broadcom. Meta actually having a really good day, 2.3% to the upside, retested 602.95. That was one of my levels here. I think that's the high price here from 7 October. Yep, that price right there. Touched that level, sold off a little bit. The concern now would be breakdown retest of the 21 and then sell off. If that happens, that's going to be terrible. And then looking at the RSI, obviously looking to retest that SMA. If it breaks down, that's going to be terrible. But good volume, a little bit better volume than we've been seeing. Momentum stepping to bullish. If this breaks out here, I think that might be a nice little trade on Meta. Potential opportunity there at 602.95. Again, the concern is the 21, but it does look a little better for me. So a couple opportunities. Let's go ahead and throw an alert there. right in there just behind the level. We'll see if we get a break there. Something to watch for. And then Broadcom, slightly positive, just 14 cents. I would be really patient here. Obviously, huge gap up on earnings. Momentum and RSI continue to fade. It really could go either way. I would probably lean to bearish, at least to the VWAP in here at 218. See what happens in there if it does continue to break your trend structures down at 200. But of course, it's holding up pretty well after earnings. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, continuing to see everything sell style price action. Staples still holding up okay. The low of that structure is that 78.17, 78.18 in here. Does continue to hold that level. Staples definitely looking better than discretionaries right now. Big volume coming through on the selling candle, still below the trend, so it's not super great. And then looking at discretionaries, big sell here, 1.31%. Sure, Tesla is driving most of that. 55 EMA is your next support. I wouldn't touch it until you get there at 217.04. Want to see it touch that level, and then if it's going to hold, touch that, catch a short-term bounce. Wouldn't be looking for anything medium term. It's a little extended here. It's breaking below the 50 line, RSI bearish, but like I said, I would be patient until we hit that 55. Still looking for the gap fill to that 22 November candle as well. Moving over to breadth, 20-day breadth, actually positive on the day, 3.8%. Momentum continues to move to bullish. RSI continuing to look a little bit bullish. You can see it's above the SMA. Breakout, retest, bounce from that level. So waiting to see what happens here. Looks like a consolidation bottom. And then looking at 50-day, not great. Did finally touch the 15.15 level. The low of the day was 14.91. And then ended up catching a bounce into the mid zone. So actually do kind of like that. Didn't close below these previous lows here, and it did catch a bounce off of that key level, so maybe that's a nice indicator. Momentum continues to step to bullish except for that one candle there on the 30th. Very small step here today, and then looking at the RSI, it is still at a oversold condition, and it is below the SMA. Want to see it hold above the SMA there, but in terms of price action, you can see very oversold here at a higher price. Now we have a lower price with a higher RSI read, so a little bit of divergence between these double bottoms. Want to see this hold in here. Again, overall, I think both of these are signaling we're probably at a short-term bottom, waiting to see if we could get that bounce or a little bit more aggressive move to the upside over the next couple days. Moving over to the dollar, incredible here on the dollar, just continues to be incredibly bullish. We had a strong push on the Tuesday, and you can see another very, very strong one here, 0.72 to the upside, touched the level, 109.5, rejected from there. That was the key level. We've been talking about it for a while. That takes you all the way back to this price action in here. Mark some key tops right here. Key consolidation areas, breakout, retest here, retest again in here, and then rallied from there. Key level here, tested those levels again. So very important level going back to September of 22. And we are there once again. Your trend resistance is going to be a little bit higher in here at 109.6, 109.69, somewhere in there. But momentum bullish, RSI bullish once again, continuing to look very strong on the dollar. Makes sense why most of the markets were a little bit bearish today. Once this starts to fade a little bit, and I do think that it will eventually, that should give equities some strength, but while the dollar continues to be super aggressive, that's going to be bearish for equities. Moving over to the VIX, continues to stay positive like we expected, momentum bullish, RSI continues to stay above the SMA, looking very bullish there. The high was 1950, looking for a touch of that 20 level. Everything says this should go a little bit higher, but we are finding a little bit of resistance in here. Maybe that's an indicator, but doesn't look super great for equities. And then looking at my account, somehow I managed to stay positive on the day. Pretty good there. It says I was 500 up. I don't know if I actually made that, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out once the markets open tomorrow. I'm sure some of that is this after hours movement. I did trade pretty well, taking shares off and then putting them back on and then selling some puts on the rally. So that played out quite well. And I did sell a covered call here for tomorrow, 507.50 for $3. So 510.60 is my max profit, which is basically where we're at already. And then in the after hours, we're about $1 above that. So above my max profit, not super great, but still have a potential for about $200 there. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, still staying a little bit bullish. I can always roll this out to the Friday if I need to. And then IWM didn't do anything with it, stayed positive on the day, continues to be good, made $100 on that call so far while the shares are still in an open profit. So everything working out there, managed to stay positive on the first day of the year. Hopefully that is a good omen for the rest of the year. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the charts and the markets here for the first day of the year. Are we going to have a good year, or is the Grinch going to send us lower? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.